Arthur, but it looks like you're masquerading as Andrea.
Say it again?
It says Andrea on your
Yeah,
name,
that's my
your alias.
my pseudonym.
It's nice to see you.
Hello.
How's the baby?
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
Hi, Larry. Larry, you're a new face to me, as I probably or might be to you.
Yes, you are.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And my colleague Sindri Anderson should be joining shortly as well.
And Andrea, when we get to the closed session, I'm gonna
She
text
is.
him. 'Cause he's not gonna come on until then.
Okay. And then because we're still waiting on everybody, the broadcast will start shortly. You know, the overlay. Which is his. And then 5 minutes. But we just have to remember to take it off when we're ready. You just hit the delete button. But sometimes I'll go get a seat to make sure we can everything straight. Here we are. So remember, it's delayed, so it takes a minute for the start shortly.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Is it 30? Yeah, that's a long time to me.
Did we let them know that we're?
Hi, everyone. We'll start shortly. We're just waiting on one of our chair. He's running just a little bit behind. So.
Great. Thanks.
YouTube.
It's nice out there now, huh? The clouds have gone away, so it's not as humid out there.
Just the other.
We're looking
There
for
we go.
those 93 temps.
But today, yesterday I still felt it very
Like as soon as he hit the door, I'll
humid. Today
I'll start shortly because he usually starts pretty fast.
Video and audio?
As long as, you know, whatever.
So
So you're aware, I guess we'll just brag on our chair. Dr. Lofton is a thoracic surgeon. So sometimes he just runs just a little bit behind if he's had a surgery or that type of thing. So
Last report.
isn't that right, Arthur?
Greg Rodriguez called me a couple hours ago and said Steve Sanchez contacted them, said that from his perspective.
What?
How do I close and reopen my browser with there? What does that mean? And still doesn't work after I close the.
Didn't get a card.
Arthur is joining us via emergency circumstances, so in the beginning, we'll have to prove him.
Approved.
And we're gonna move some things around the agenda.
Yeah, and Director Delara knows what we're moving, social.
Feel free to. Can you hear us okay? Yes?
Can
Okay.
can you hear me?
You're a little muffled, but.
Well, how about if I do that? If it's not less.
I did, yes.
Let's call the order. Desert Healthcare Foundation Finance Committee. Thing.
Different agenda.
I think so. There's the district. Look at that. All right, for the district. Or can I have an approval of the agenda?
I am going to ask that we move item H1 and H2 to follow E2.
H1 and H2, follow E2. Okay.
And then we're also approving the emergency circumstance for the record for Director Shore.
Yeah,
Great.
I will move that we determine good cause for Director Shore to join us remotely without having his address posted. That he qualifies as just cause.
So you made a motion. I'll second that.
and I would just like to clarify,
Sure.
let's move items H1 and H2 following E1.
Oh,
instead
E2,
of-
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're fine.
We made a motion. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Thank you.
am I allowed to vote now, Andrea?
You're official now.
Yes, you can vote, you can speak, all that good stuff.
Okay, thank
Mute
you.
him?
He is on.
Oh, he's unmuted now. Oh, man. So, I like a motion to approve the new agenda now.
I will move approval with the changes made now.
Okay, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
comment?
No public
Okay,
comments.
seeing none, motion carries.
We're at the meeting minutes.
Yep. on to
We
the
haven't gotten
minutes.
there yet.
Good.
Public
You're just
comment
leaving.
after.
Yeah, I just check it, I don't know if I need to get a public opinion on the agenda. Meeting minutes, may I have an approval for, the July 8th meeting minutes.
I will move approval with the changes to my last name, with the correction to my last name, with that being done, I will move approval.
I will second that.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Comment on the meeting minutes from last July.
No public comments.
Okay, thank you. Item D, public comments. At this time, comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and in the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The committee has a policy of limiting speakers to not more than 3 minutes. The committee cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on an agenda item when it comes up for discussion and our action. Any public comment?
No public comments.
All right, great. Move on to the next, section E. Chris, CEO report.
Thank you, Director Logston. So we have in the packet the investment performance review reports for both the healthcare district reserve account as well as the retirement protection plan. So we do have our investment broker, Keith Stribling, with us today, as always, to give us an update and overview on the reports for quarter ending June 30th.
So is that gonna be embedded in yours or the numbering?
Yeah, that-
Mine?
Whichever you'd like to do. If
Well, I
it's
don't
easier
care.
for you,
I
'cause
just
I can open it up
It's
separately.
just easier for me to,
To do yours.
well, they're gonna be the same. I just don't know what the numbering is.
Yeah, the page number.
Okay, well, what I can do is open his up
Okay.
separately
Might be easier.
and we
Yeah.
can use his directly.
The same.
Yeah,
There we go,
it's
1 through
easier for you.
41.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, maybe we'll start. I thought what I'd do is go over performance fund changes made in the last 6 months or so. Then we talk about the economy and then positioning. And of course, questions are always welcome. Maybe start on page 2.1.
Okay. Let me move them down here. 2.1, okay. Oh, that's a little ways down.
It's a little bit, yeah, there you go.
There we
That's 2.1. Okay. So just starting off with this is the retirement plan. The one that has a little more fun than the other one, but for the quarter up 6.5%, year to date up 7.5%, and 1 year up almost just under 12%. The returns have been very good. This is, even if you look at that 5-year period compounding at 9.5%, if you go to page 2.2, you'll see the fixed income, which is 35% of the account, only up 1.15%, which actually is pretty good because the benchmark was down 73 basis points over 5 years. But the reason I bring it up is because we've had a resetting of interest rates to a much higher level now. And even while we had that, we were able to, usually when interest rates go up from basically 0 to 4.5% on a 10-year treasury, you have a lot of risk to financial markets, but the economy powered through it. So we got a resetting of interest rates to a level where we can make money and they can act as a hedge against any economic downturn. And still we're able to compound it over almost 9.5% during the period. So it's been a good period, and it's nice to have interest rates at a level where they can actually benefit the portfolio. Just in terms of funds that were either changed or added. And then I might highlight one that I'm not too happy with. That would be, one thing to mention is international has outperformed the US this year. Reason being, a big part of the international return is change in the value of the dollar relative to foreign currencies. That has a lot to do with the relative, both the direction of and the relative growth and the direction of and the relative interest rates. And in this case, US economy is slowing. It's still growing, but it's growing at a lesser rate. So that sort of second derivative is negative. Even though the growth rate is positive. And interest rates have gone from a high level to a more easing bias. So that has pressured the dollar, benefiting international stocks. And just in terms of fund changes, it's not reflected in here from the passive ETF to one of our active small cap funds because I like the fund and it's underperformed in the recent period, so I thought that was an opportunity. Also, things that we added in the last 6 months to a year, we changed the REIT fund that we use to the Cohen and Sears REIT fund, and it's done very well. I like that fund very much. It seems to do well in negative environments as well as positive environments. So it's a pretty good combination. And then we added listed infrastructure. Infrastructure funds are interest rate sensitive, and we have an environment where interest rates are headed lower. They are really recession resistant because they're what they produce, which is a lot of power and building roads and things like that. So, they have pretty inelastic demand. So even in an economic downturn, they tend to be defensive. And they are also inflation proof, or not proof, nothing is, but, have some inflation hedging properties. And their products they have good pricing power with the services and products they provide. So we thought that was a good area to add hedging and non-correlated assets into the portfolio. As I said, generally performance is good, and so that's a good thing. I'll take a moment and talk about the economy and the portfolio positioning, and then we can look at the fixed income fund. So fiscal policy still remains very stimulative. Government kind of overspending, basically. Monetary policy is easing and rate cuts are expected. They started the rate cut cycle last year and then basically had to put pause on that. And now it looks like we're headed back to cutting rates. Just going back to, and I think I maybe have talked about this to some extent, but before, but when Trump was elected, he was elected based on his economic policy was kind of the core of it was tax cuts, deregulation for business, immigration, whatever that means, and tariffs, whatever that meant. As we've gotten into this, it's been a very policy-driven market. So tariffs, for example, first they were for controlling fentanyl coming across our borders. Then they were for bringing back manufacturing jobs. Then they were for reciprocal tariffs. You tariff me 10%, I tariff you 10%. And then it ended up being based on trade deficits. That caused some stress in April, where stock market had already been weakening on expectations that the economy is slowing. And then the tariff rates came out much higher than expected. Stock market purged itself for 2 days and had 10% down move in 2 days. But then the Trump administration backed off on some of the most harsh rhetoric and market was able to recover. But tariffs in themselves are largely considered to be inflationary. The big beautiful bill was passed. That there's marketing name for it, but it's a tax and spending bill, and it's basically a lot of spending. So to generate economic activity, accelerated depreciation for capital investment in the near term. So trying to spark the economy in that way. But that again could be inflationary. And then deportations or whatever that meant. So it seems it means more than we thought maybe on day one, but there is some talk that they're going around doing a heavy-handed start to discourage people from coming to the border in the first place. I think everybody would agree that, deporting people who are here illegally with a violent criminal history is positive. Deporting everybody would be difficult for the economy to absorb because the farming industry depends on immigration, home building industry, restaurants and hotels, all of them are very dependent on undocumented immigrants. So deporting them too excessively would be inflationary again. So all of these kept the Fed on hold this year, created tension between the president and the Fed chairman. There's a lot of drama there. The stock market's initial reaction, as we mentioned, was negative, but it's kind of seen the MO of the Trump administration to talk loud in the beginning and back off in the end, and so they're kind of ignoring it at this point. The bond market, the yield curve is steepened. So if you look at the yield curve right now, Fed funds rate is like 4.25%, and the 2-year is 3.6%, and then the 10 years was as high as 4.5%. So it's kind of a check mark shape, and that's the market saying they expect the Fed funds rate to come down to be closer to where the 2-year is, and then it would be more upward sloping. That was uncertain at first, but labor market has been softening, and we saw both demand for labor and supply of available labor fall, which is pretty unusual. And so the Fed has become more concerned about that because of the demand side more than anything else. So and then there's been some revisions that have created some tension with the Department of Labor. And most recently today, there were some more revisions, and so the job market doesn't look as healthy as it did maybe 3 months ago. With that said, there's all but foregone conclusion that the Fed will cut interest rates 25 basis points in September at the next meeting. And the number of cuts this year went from 2 to 2.7 at expectation. I know that you can't have a 0.7 cut, but that just means that they're leaning more toward a third cut than they were maybe a couple months ago. So we would expect to see some rate cuts coming up. In terms of the portfolio positioning, we are at the strategic asset allocation and just kind of balancing policy uncertainty.
Why would the Feds cut rate if they think tariffs are inflationary?
So it's a tough thing, right? Because
I call BS on some of that, because
So-
you don't cut rates if you think something's inflationary. It's
it's a
a
risk.
statement, it doesn't have to be answered, it just,
Nope, I would like to
I can answer
about that
that.
actually,
It's just-
because I agree with you. So
just,
it is a risk. And, when you cut interest rates, you stimulate the economy. And actually, the risk really could be if you cut interest rates too aggressively, you could get the opposite reaction
they're
from the
talking
10-year
out of both
treasury.
sides of their mouth, it's funny.
We,
Right,
keep
there,
it a little bit more
the
professional here.
the labor market and the inflation rate are their two sort of juggling acts. And, clearly there's a lot of political pressure to cut interest rates. And I don't know if that factors into it to some degree also, but they're basically worried that if the labor market falls apart, it doesn't matter if all those other things are inflationary, the economy's going down, and that would kind of sink it. If you think about monetary policy, whatever you do today doesn't really affect the economy until maybe 6 months. And if you're trying to get 3 cuts in, then it'd be, 6 months after the third cut before it really matters. So now you're into June and you're trying to basically try and stay ahead of that. That would be the argument for cutting rates, even though there is a risk of inflation, as you pointed out. And I would agree with that observation. But anyway, we're basically at our strategic asset allocation, sort of balancing policy uncertainty and elevated valuations. Stock market valuation is not cheap these days. With a good underlying economy that supports company fundamentals, companies have been beating their earnings estimates. Of course, a lot of that's dominated by 7 companies because They have become really just, they have very high margins and they generate positive free cash flow and they're self-funding and they're spending a ton of money on AI. And, it's basically, the ROE is higher, the margins are higher, the incremental margin on the incremental piece of revenue is much higher. So it's created an elevated valuation. You can make an argument that it's okay, but, it is a risk. And then, and also, just expectations that the Fed will be cutting rates is typically supportive for risk assets.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. Any questions on that
Good,
before?
bad, or indifferent.
What's that?
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, it's just, it is what it is. Real quick, if we go to,
I have a question.
yeah,
I also share some of the frustrations my director here about the situation and not knowing what to believe and not to believe, that's definitely can understand that. My question is, you mentioned that the international market is doing better than the domestic market. And it seemed like there was some countries that were faring better in terms of being favored by Mr. Trump and others weren't. So is that demonstrated at all in the international market by these crazy tariffs and ones that were negotiated down?
So we use a fund that has a blend of lots of different countries, and so the effect is kind of minimal country by country. You might see a little bit more of it in emerging markets because China is such a heavy weight in emerging markets. But even that's a place where he was gonna be harsh on them and then he wasn't. So, so that particular market has done pretty well because of that. So kind of like what you were
So it's
referencing.
absorbed in
Yeah, it's just embedded in the funds. So it's not, we don't have necessarily India, China, Europe or whatever. We don't have like pieces where we underweight and overweight the pieces. We're just buying a broad-based fund. So, but a good question. Any other questions before I look at the fixed income portfolio? There's not much to say here, but let's turn to page 2.2. No, 2.1. Well, I have 2.1, but I think I just said 2.1. Maybe it's 3.1.
Okay.
I think it's the next 2.1. I realized what happened is I combined two reports, and so they're both 2.1.
Oh, there we go.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Usually I try and change the numbering. I forgot to do that. So, all right, so as you can see for the quarter, well, first of all, the fixed income portfolio is up to 70,467,000. The first quarter it was up 1.3%, year to date up 2.9%, and compounding over 3 years at 3.5%. Even the 5-year period where interest rates were ultra low, up 1.6% compounded, which is not too bad compared to where we were a while ago. And like I mentioned before, it's we have a resetting of interest rates, so we're able to reset the portfolio to try and capture some more of that yield. And if you'll turn to page 3.1, be my last one I look at. Here you can see on the upper left corner, the duration is 1.77 years. And the yield to maturity 3.87% and the coupon 3.5%. So we've got some yield in our fixed income portfolio. So trying to just make sure that we keep the duration up there and to make sure that it doesn't just disappear. That's all I have.
If I may.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so my question is, it's hard to forecast how we're gonna be in the future, but looking back, what would you have done differently in terms of how we invest?
So in terms of the fixed income portfolio or the retirement?
Like, we start with retirement. and-
Yeah, retirement plan, I mean, you know, obviously I just take more risk. Because it's a great environment for risk taking. But, you know, we have an IPS and it keeps us in a certain place and, you know, that's to keep me from being a renegade. So, yeah, but that would be, you know, my, thing. I think if I could go back in time at all, the one thing maybe I would have done is added a little more to growth after 2022. When the growth stocks got killed and the initial, raising of interest rates was occurring. But, you know, we stayed pretty neutral to value and growth and just.
Only losing things, I think.
No, it just would have been relative gains, exactly, so, but you know, in that case, that might have been an area that would have been a little easier, it's always hard, so it's all relative ease, right? Might have been a little bit easier to pick that if I had just been a little bit more quick on my feet in that regard, but we didn't underweight it, we just could have put a little more in there.
It's easier to make that assessment now.
It's really easy to make that, it's super easy.
And what could have we done, because it's hard to do the other way.
Yeah,
Forward.
so, yeah, I will say I'm glad we added infrastructure funds. I'm glad we switched out the REIT fund because I think those have added to the portfolio and both in terms of high expected returns with non-correlation, so reducing the standard deviation of the portfolio. And I think those would work out to be good over time. And I like the new infrastructure, or not infrastructure, the new REIT fund that we have, which wasn't one that was available to me previously. So that's something I pulled out of the new fund. In terms of the fixed income portfolio, so I've moved that to our institutional fixed income team and I give them general guidance. And I think my guidance was pretty good, which was make sure you get the duration extended while rates are up. And so they have, but it's, you know, it's always a fighting thing. There's every day that portfolio ages, the duration shortens. And so, you know, you have to keep kind of moving bonds out to maintain it. So it's, you know, sometimes maintaining duration in a portfolio like that feels like a hamster on a hamster wheel. Like you're running and running and running, but it doesn't go anywhere. But the main thing is it hasn't shortened. And that's an important element because the benchmark, you know, like it's just a benchmark, but we have a live portfolio where we have to actively manage that. And so I'm happy that we push that. Could we have pushed it higher? Maybe yes, but that would, you know, that was probably a good thing.
And the duration, is that at the place where we have flexibility going into the, you know, what we have, that we're not sure what we're gonna end up, needing in the next 3 years or so, but do we, what my guess would be that we're probably going to start using more money to start with.
Out of that portfolio?
Yeah.
Right, and so we're
Good to
just,
know.
yes, and so, first off, we're gonna give you 3 million here in the next 2 or 3 days,
Okay,
to add to that, but, to Director Delara's point is we're going into, strategic planning process,
Yeah.
and we're going to be looking at, you know, goals and strategies 10, 20 years out.
yep,
And then within that, the new 5-year plan beginning by 26.
okay,
And so, with the resources, the 70 million that we presently have being freed up from the limitations that we had potentially doing the seismic work at the hospital, we don't have that now because of the new lease with Tenet. And then we will have lease income coming in beginning 2027.
okay,
The first installment of $100 million. So, what I see with the process is we're defining what those goals and objectives are. And then I anticipate there will probably be some brick and mortar asset type ways that we'll be going in addition to grant funding. And so we'll be probably increasing the utilization of resources, but also manageable resources over time to meet those goals and future obligations.
So
right.
we do have
So,
the flexibility
if
in
I'm-
beginning to use. I think that, like what you just described, the first couple of years will probably, start using some of
Drawing
that,
down
but then
some of the-
bringing other money in that will backfill and
Correct.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're gonna put some money in so it'll go up, but then as we get into 2026, you might start drawing down the portfolio.
Right.
And then when we get into 2027, it would be
It was
replenished.
bumped up, Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to
Managing
know.
those resources in perpetuity and then meeting those long-range goals and objectives.
Okay. Just, the good news is it's in US Treasuries, the most liquid investment in the world. So we can get it. We, if we need it, we can get it. I prefer to sort of smoothly manage that process rather than sort of with a sledgehammer. So to the extent that you kind of have a runway or, kind of, oh, we're gonna need, in June, we'll need 2 million and
Absolutely.
in August, we might need 5 million, something like that. I can kind of, with maybe a little bit of planning about, tell my portfolio manager, hey, that bond's maturing, don't reinvest it because it's going out the door. So,
And that's what we intend to do once we get the strategic plan in place. Part of that is going to be just kind of at a high level defining, okay, what kind of cash outlays do we
right.
anticipate? And then.
Yes.
putting that up,
Forecasting.
investment.
Right, because and I know how that goes. You forecast something and then it changes, so.
Right.
That's part of forecasting, but to the extent that we could kind of try and target those maturities to kind of be available when you need it would be kind of smoother way to do it, so. Which I can work with the fixed income guy who make sure that kind of occurs, but yeah, just more information you give me, the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What's limiting our investment in our capability to invest in other things outside of very restricted bonds?
So I don't know all the rules, but if this is subject to government code, which I think it is, then the rules are really stringent and basically I can't buy a bond that's more than 5 years.
No equities,
No
no
equities.
funds.
Yeah,
Gotta be very.
you have to sort of set things up and, like. I don't know how the money flow works, but, usually when something's in the liquidity funds that are under government code, you can't do much with it. You almost have to move them into a trust outside to do
Okay.
something with it, but, that's only if you're allowed to do it. So like, for example, we have, also manage money for cities and counties and, they have money in their general fund that's subject to the government code. But, they might want to set money aside for their CalPERS pension. And so, so they have to create a separate trust and move the money into that, but then it can only be used for the CalPERS pension. So.
Yeah.
The government's pretty
It would be
controlled.
helpful would be if you shared with Director Logston our investment policy statements. That way he'll.
Sort of laws are, I know we've talked about it before, I just can't find the legal stuff on it right now. Now with the federal government owning, 15% of it, what Nvidia, what did they buy? Nvidia, what did they give them? Didn't they just give them like
Intel.
sorry, I'm just like,
That's
well,
okay,
okay,
yeah.
there you go. So
They-
I just curious, what
money and-
I'm just curious, that's a government entity, so they're able to own Intel. I'm like, what's limiting us? Because if you look at the returns, 13% over 10 years of basic S&P fund versus, I don't have to tell you, but a much better return, it'd be much better for the taxpayer community to live off of something like that if our
Right,
friends were.
there's
So it was, the only point was like, I've seen changes. I know of government entities are currently now owning single equities.
it seems odd. Yes.
So it just, that would be better for us. Well, I just want to see the rules.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they, maybe they're not able to do it, but they're doing it. So
Yes, exactly.
I would like to play by those
same
same rules for our community as well. So
Understood.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think with any of that, there's risk associated with it, so I think that's where it comes into play.
I mean, look at 10 years, so.
Wow.
10, 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a case to be made for even if you have like 10 or 15% of the portfolio in stocks, you create somewhat of an inflation hedge.
It's a lot more money you can give away to the community, do more good. That's
Right.
so, all right. So, thank you for that. Not an action item, just information.
Right. Any questions from anybody else for Mr. Stribling? Director Shore?
So he's gonna do a presentation to the board or is?
So that'll just be a written report
A written
to the board, so he'll give us, what he normally does, like a written summary. Nothing.
But no action item, it's just info.
That's just information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody.
Yeah, you too, thank you for coming out.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right.
Did you have any questions, Arthur?
No, it's good, it's good.
He's calling in a question right now.
No,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure to see if you had any questions.
no, thank you. I'm listening.
Okay, all right.
I thought he might be calling one in.
Yeah,
He's calling a friend.
you know,
For the user.
$1 million, you know.
There's a buy order, there's a buy order, buy, that's what he's telling you, all right, so on to the, thank you for coming again.
What's that?
I'm just curious. He pretty nice stuff.
Oh.
Thank you again for coming.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. Yeah, always good to see you. All right, on to the next section. I think we've moved H1 over, so the TWC Healthcare Consulting Agreement. Who's gonna be presenting?
Hope your son wins.
I will do on that, so, so we talked a little bit about this at our last board meeting with regard to bringing back in some governance, oversight and working with the board and CEO on governance issues related to the healthcare district and board oversight, et cetera. And Larry Walker of TWC Healthcare Consulting, also DBA, the Walker Company. We have done work with Mr. Walker in the past regarding, assessments, board assessments, and then also with some governance workshops over the past few years. And so the work that we were doing before, we kind of put on hold a little bit while we were going through the work of the hospital lease. And then also, we had the board election in November, which we have 2 additional new board members. So we would like to reconvene that process and do some governance workshops over the next few months, and would like to engage the services of Larry Walker again in that process. He is available to us if you have questions. The ask would be not to exceed $36,500 plus customary expenses. There is like a scope of work in the proposal, but we would be defining that more as we go, as we're working with the board in working through this process. And we do believe that going this route too is also good for our board process with our annual board self-assessment. As for those that were on the board previously, the self-assessment that we do through ACHD, although it's a good self-assessment tool, we just felt like it might be better to do something a little bit more tailored, specific to our healthcare district and board members. And so this would also help satisfy that process, so that we can check off that box when we're applying for certification with ACHD as well as CSDA. So if there's any questions, or if you have any questions that can be directed with Mr. Walker, or if Larry, if you have any additional input on that, that would be appreciated as well.
Well, thank you, Chris, and I appreciate the outreach from you as a follow-up to the expansive work that we did before in what we called phase 1 of governance development for the district board. I guess the fundamental question that really needs to be answered by the board is whether governance leadership development is really important to this board. I think it is. I believe that, Chris, you believe it is. And I'm curious to know whether the other board members, I've certainly worked with Director DeLaura and Director Shore. I have not yet had an opportunity to work with the new directors, obviously, but I've worked with the other directors that were on the board at the time that we did the previous work. And I agree with you, during the time that you were undergoing all of your work surrounding the lease development, that was a huge undertaking, and I think it took away from a lot of what we were trying to do with trying to complete a lot of the work, which was really expansive at that time. So I guess I just need to know how important this board thinks governance development is for the district board, and maybe Director Delara and Director Shore, and if Director Logston is there, I could hear from them as to what they think.
Well, what exactly is board governance consulting? Like what are you expecting us to get out of it? I'm new to this whole idea, like you mentioned.
Well, fundamentally, what I would expect you to get out of it is a variety of ways to improve the board's ability to be able to deliver on its fundamental mission and vision in improving the quality of leadership and effectiveness in providing services and value to the district that you've been elected to serve. And there are a variety of ways to do that. And I would hope that through the work that we would do and leveraging all the work we did for the district before would enable us to work with you to devise out of the resources that I've proposed in this second resources to another level, to be able to be more effective as leaders on behalf of the district.
And how is this going to align with our strategic? I guess I have a little bit of confusion around how does this align with our strategic plan? Because a lot of what I'm hearing saying here overlaps with how our strategic plan group is going to be coming in. So I just don't want to have conflicting things going on with one group that we were clearly heavily invested in for the strategic planning. You know, having another company here who's also doing good consulting work, sounds like they have a great background, you know, overlaying those two things together. How do you envision that working, Chris?
I see it as very beneficial because it also running parallel with the strategic planning. It helps us as a board and a team to become a little more cohesive and to be able to learn, you know, governing skills and working together. Because one thing that I think is important for us to understand and learn through this, through the governing part of it, is are we a governing board or are we a managing board? And there's a huge difference between the two. And, you know, so I think we need to learn and understand that and decide as a board what that is.
Now, should that be done before strategic planning? So that when we go into strategic plan, we know who we are.
I think it can start.
I'm just trying to get some clarification.
If I may?
Of course.
Okay, so, I do have a couple of points, addressing that, and then I have a question for you afterwards, about this thing. So, I think this is a good idea to do this now, rather than doing it after strategic or even after, because the governance part, it should be done before, during. You always have to have governance and function better. So I think it's important that we have this now, because we have some issues that I think we're working through them, but I want to make sure that we continue to stay focused on the communication, how we can continue to improve on working together. And when you said before, are we a governance board or we're a managing board? I have my opinion, but is it what you think? That's what we need to have this conversation now.
Yeah.
To have that conversation, have that understanding, and then see how we can be on the same page so that we have both the same answer. Okay, So one of the things that I think is missing on this page were, this page, 3, where it has the bullet points of the topics of work, sessions that we include. I would like it to be included something about, it might be hinting, but it's not clear enough about how to improve the working relationship between board members and the CEO. To make sure that we're not, that we're providing clear direction, that we're not conflicting, that I think needs to be in there. That what is the role as a director on how we work with our CEO? So, the other thing is that I hope that we walk away from this, and once we're done, that we also will put into place that whenever we do have a new board member, that I know you have an orientation process right now, but I think that orientation process, that we could look at that, revisit it, and see how we can improve it or strengthen that. And my last point is, Chris, my question to you is the price. $36,000. I'm gonna ask you whether you think that is reasonable in comparison to other consultants of what that's expected. I think that is my responsibility, is to question whether the dollar amount is the right amount. So I'm gonna ask you, after you've already evaluated, this proposal, is it a reasonable price?
I believe it is for the importance of the work. And Mr. Walker has, because we did have the prior agreement, but during the lease negotiation stuff, we were committed to paying the balance of the agreement, but we weren't doing the work. So Mr. Walker has worked with us on this proposal to blend those hours into this new.
So we didn't use up all the money before. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
There's like about $6,000 left.
Yeah, so, I believe it's a valuable, dollar amount for the work that we're doing. I think it's important for all the reasons that have been stated. And I think it's good to do it parallel with our strategic planning process, because we're in those strategic planning meetings and also in our regular board meetings. We're not going to be talking about governance. So, and I know it's a lot of work, for staff, for board members, but I think it's a very valuable effort for us to do, along with the DEI component that we'll be talking about shortly.
I agree with Chris and with Letty. I believe that the strategic planning and governance development should take place concurrently. You can't have good strategy and you can't carry out good strategy without good governance and good governing leadership. And so blending those two together, I think, really is essential and crucial if you want to be successful.
Hello? Can I get a turn?
Director,
Can you hear me okay? I can't believe it, but it seems to me that I've been on this board for like 100 years. And during that 100 years, there's been a huge ocean swells. If you just imagine big waves, they peak, they ebb, they peak, they ebb. And we've had everything from crisis to confrontations, to leadership changes, to lawsuits, to, from what I recall, someone saying one time, physical confrontations. And yet this board has managed in the most recent iteration of this board, seems to have developed a certain calmness about it. Yeah, we disagree about stuff, but that's the overhead of people having opinion. So I have to believe that if we take the long view, we've actually come a very long way to developing a quiet, an effective governance model. Can it be improved? Yeah. There's no question it can be improved, because people's perceptions should continue to grow and continue to evolve. So I agree that doing it concurrently with the strategic plan, it's really, two parts of the same, the two components of the same process. It's coming to yes. And I think there was a book called Coming to Yes. And it's the way we do business. So for the most part, I think we're in fairly decent shape, but I would endorse the product.
My last final.
I might,
Oh,
I
go
might
ahead.
also, I might also point out in response to what Letty said, this is a proposal with a not to exceed cost of $36,500. And I have pointed out that the responsibility is for the board and the CEO working together with me to determine what parts of this proposal would be undertaken and when, and that will determine ultimately what the cost would be. So the cost could be less than $36,500. You're in charge of that, not me.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference in this contract too, is that there is that flexibility to cut it off when we feel that we've succeeded with the work that we're doing. So, and we appreciate Mr. Walker, being flexible in that regard.
So I guess two things. One, did we take this to RFP and what's our rules around that? And how was this selected? Because I know when we went to do our strategic planning, large RFP process.
Yeah,
That's something we need to consider because I know being a public entity, I want to make sure we're aligned with how we select. Nothing personal here with against it, just making sure we're doing that. Number two, I'd like to see a fee schedule for the consulting fees. What paid by hour, paid by meeting, how's it done? It's not in the proposal. I see the scope of work. I see total dollar amount not to exceed, but I don't see how we're going to be billed. I'd like to see that.
How we're going to be billed is on a monthly basis.
But what's the hours? What's the hour per consultant? I want to see it broken down. I just don't want a
Okay.
blanket fee.
So
So
is that something, Larry, that you can provide as like have a fee schedule? That, I mean, I think you had set it up like on a monthly type of fee, right?
so the subscription.
Well, it's really based on a project. I've never charged a client in over 40 years of work. I've never charged on an hourly basis.
Oh, good.
Everything is done on a project basis. And I can certainly provide you with each one of these items, what a project fee would be for each part.
I think that answers my question. I just wasn't sure. A lot of consultants bill by the hour. I just wanted to know how we're being billed. If it's a project-based billing, you're gonna work until the project's done, so to speak, and that's totally fine.
Correct.
Great, thank you. And then the RFP, I mean, I know we've worked with them in the past before, so we obviously have a history, but
Yeah, and with these types of deals where they're specialized, we have the ability that we can go with a preferred recommended consulting.
how was this one referred to? Just so I have history on that. Is there a connection with
I
anybody on the
believe-
board?
I believe that the connection was through ACHD because Larry Walker's company works closely with ACHD. And so was recommended as a, like a preferred.
So he's done other boards, that's all I wanted to
Exactly,
hear.
and especially has the experience with like healthcare district boards and how that whole process works. So
Isn't the dollar amount also determining whether you do an RFP, if it's a certain dollar amount that you, it's recommended that you do it, I mean, if it's below that, I mean, it's.
yeah, because we do have how we, if we need to do an RFP there, that if it's specialty type of services, we can go direct source.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, if it was a lot more, I would definitely be inclined to go with an RFP, but it is a small.
Curious the relationships and all that, but I'm gonna make a motion to just go ahead and approve this. Comes very heavily recommended from staff, I think with experience in the board, so I'll make a motion to send.
I will second your motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any public comment?
No public comments.
Mr. Walker, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This will go to the board on the 30th for full board consideration.
Public doesn't close. sweat.
Affects your decision and voting out there.
I just pretty much tell them I don't care. All right, I'm sorry, that's, I didn't mean that.
So if there's a motion, then ask for public comment.
I got it. Corrected. All right, so we'll move on to the second one that moved over. So H2 is now the next one in line. This is the Activate Inclusion
Great.
DEI Consulting Agreement.
And Larry, you're welcome to stay with us, but
Don't feel
this
obligated.
agenda item is complete, so thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item is a consulting services agreement with Activate Inclusion. Again, here, this is kind of along the same lines with the governance work. We had discussed recently at a board meeting in incorporating both governance as well as diversity, equity, inclusion training, again, back into our organization. Because we want to ensure that we collectively as staff and board and the organization as a whole, that we are being mindful of equity and diversity. I think that we are complying with that, but we did do some work a couple of years ago with Activate Inclusion. Both Ace and Sindri were actively involved in that process with us. We did, I believe it was 3 separate sessions separately with the board, and I think Sindri worked with the board and Trace with staff. And I thought it was very good, very effective. But it's something that I think we need reminders of and refreshing and, continual learning and working in this process, especially in our diverse community. And equity is incredibly important. And so we felt that, again, going in line with strategic planning process, governance process, and the DEI process, that we incorporate these things together as we move forward as an organization, which I believe will help make us stronger together and representing the community in the work that we do. And so what we're proposing in this proposal and service agreement is engaging again with Activate Inclusion, since we have that history and experience with them, and continuing the efforts that were done before and adding to that process. But also we would like to do, instead of just the complete separate work with staff, separate from the board, we would like to do individual separate sessions, as well as bringing the board and staff together as well for some sessions. And so you see the scope of work that's there. If you would like, we do have both Chris and Sindri available. If you would like them to provide a little more details and oversight with it, or overview of it. If you have any questions, they're also available also. So I'll turn that back to you, Director Logston.
And I'll just ask similar questions, do we need an RFP for this? How are the connections to the board? How do we evaluate them? And I'm guessing the staff is finding these people to recommend to us.
Yeah, and again, we contracted with Activate Inclusion a couple of years ago to engage in this process. I don't remember how we originally connected with you folks, Trace and Sindri. I was under the prior CEO, and I don't think we did an RFP, but I don't remember the exact way we connected. But do you
Was a
remember?
referral from another health agency, a public health agency, and I'd have to go look and see what that was. I
Desert
can certainly
AIDS.
get back to Desert AIDS. Thank you.
Okay, so DAP recommended. Okay.
JP.
Yeah, so that's the history, and we do have that working relationship with them. I felt very confident in the work that we did together with them. I don't know from board perspective, but you did. But I didn't hear any complaints either, so.
You want to hear it from me at this point?
Do we have options?
You're the boss. Scott, I think that there was always the expectation that we were going to kind of see how we were going to be after some time passed, to see whether we were reverting back to our old way of our own pattern, or we're incorporating what we learned in the work that we're continuing to do. So that's why I think it's a continuing process. I actually thought we had that in RFP, but I mean, I don't remember it, so obviously not. But I see on here that one of the big pieces of this, I guess the biggest piece is the coaching for board members and the 5 staff leaders. It was so productive last time. I'm sure it will be productive again, so I look forward to it. But I see this as how we can be better board members for our community that we serve. So I think it is important for us to be able to understand what makes us different, so that we can learn how we can come together to be better representatives for our community. So I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, especially as we expand our efforts, going through our strategic planning. And I mean, we are just, I see us expanding our outreach and growth in different areas, and, you know, being able to serve the community even better. So I think lining up these 3 components, or these 2 components, governance with DEI, along with our strategic planning, are hugely important.
I would like to add what maybe it's already in here, but if we can just set some objectives by the board at the beginning and at the end, make a determination whether we achieve those objectives. And if what we expect of our grantees to tell us whether they accomplished what they set out to do. Yeah. I will move approval.
I'll second it. All in favor?
I, oh,
Just kidding.
sorry.
Public comment?
No public comment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You
Motion.
me.
Motion carries.
Director Shore, do you have any comments, or do you want to vote in favor?
No, I vote in favor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I saw his lips moving.
Oh, you did?
Uh,
Okay, sorry.
Special District Risk Management Authority, anything there specifically? I want to keep us on schedule here, and I'm a little behind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
good rest of your evening.
Time for us,
Take care.
forward to it.
Okay, so we'll go to item 2, which is the retirement
Yep.
protection plan. Okay, so I'll try to keep that brief, but as we're all aware, we've got the retirement protection plan program, which were employees of the healthcare district when we operated the hospital in '87.
Yep.
There are still approximately 50 that are still actively employed at the hospital, and another 50 that are termed but and entitled to disbursement of their funds, but have not requested it. We, as the district, incur about $16,000 to $18,000 per year between the annual audit as well as the actuarial evaluation that is done. And so we're actually taking a look at possibly dissolving the plan, which would require getting a change in the IRS designation, because it was a frozen plan, because we did not, the district did not have the financial resources to pay out those employees when they left. So it was frozen. They're able to receive the monies when they leave employment. But since we're expending these funds year over year on the service of it, plus staff efforts, we would like to take a look at possibly dissolving the plan. There will be some dollars associated with that, and we'll come back with an actual financial plan proposed to the committee probably next month. We are working with Nyhart, who is the actuarial firm, and they can work with us in taking essentially dissolving that plan. It can help us to coordinate getting the IRS designation changed to where we can pay out employees that are still actively involved at the hospital.
Yep.
Find ways to hopefully track down these former employees that have not received their monies. And we do have to offer an option of an annuity that the employees can take if they want. But those can be lined up with an insurance type company that we can arrange to take those over. They would do like an actuarial study for those that want to do the annuities, so that we would then end up paying what they anticipate the payout of that would be. So long story short, just information, we want to bring them to the committee next month, possibility of terminating that plan, transferring it out of our organization. So we're taking a look at things that are going to allow us to be more efficient in what the healthcare district is doing going forward. And this is, you know, one of those things we expend effort on it, but it doesn't benefit the community that we serve other than paying out those employees that leave the hospital. So just information, if there's any thoughts about it right now, otherwise we plan to bring a proposal next month.
Good, I like it.
I have a couple of questions. One question is, were we legally required to keep this in place after after the negotiations with the original lease? Were we required to keep it in place?
No,
Okay.
not per any terms of the lease,
Okay.
right? So
And the second one is, besides the annuity that they would be able to do, could they actually transfer that money to another 401k?
yeah, and that's what we'd be proposing to do, especially, and it's, the options would be that they could take cash out if they're over 59.5 without any penalty to it. They can roll over, which they have those options right now. They can take this first month where they can roll over to another investment, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I like where you're thinking about, making it more efficient, and if it's not part of what we're doing, that we can like that. So,
Okay, thank you. Next item is just another informational item with the Special District Risk Management Authority, which we kind of know better as SDRMA. It's an annual report that we receive from them regarding liability claims, and we're happy to say that the healthcare district has been claims free for this last fiscal year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On to the leasing update.
Good. I'm gonna start on page 53, just real briefly for the CAO report. Still 100% occupied at the Las Palmas Medical Plaza. Annual rent right now, including CAMs, is estimated at $1,562,866. And I will note that there are 3 leases that we'll have a little bit later in the agenda that we'll be bringing today. So that's all I needed to note on that particular report.
Thank you. Right. Let's do the financial reports as one big chunk, and then we'll approve them all at the end. We'll just hit the highlights if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at page 56. Here, just highlighting, this is going to show our variances over 25,000 for the months of July and August. So we're still early in the fiscal year here, but you know, over an income about 172,000, primarily due to market conditions. The thing I would note on our investments is the budgeted value that we use for the district and the foundation was our average over the last 5 years. So there's bound to be some variances. We experience what the actual market conditions will be, and so income's up so far for the 2 months. Lower on the wages side of things in the direct expenses line, we do have a couple positions that are budgeted that we aren't yet filling. That we'll look at a little later on in the year. We go through the strategic planning element, but that's one element of it. Since we haven't yet started census as under budget, but as we note each year, we do allocate the grant budget evenly across the year, but the grant applications don't necessarily come in that same fashion. So that will change over the years. Kind of the main notes on our variance, but we're still early in the fiscal.
So it's page 1 of 2, the second page 1 of 2. Second set of page 1 of 2.
I don't know what you're referring to.
So it's it is a profit and loss budget versus actual.
There we go. Okay.
So on 5131, I think it's the next.
Ah.
It's the page- No, the next one.
Down one more.
It's just the insurance. I know it's
There
that
it is.
time of the year again, coming up. I saw that we were over, but, any thoughts about insurance? Have you received anything from our broker, increase?
Yeah, they're expecting another increase. I want to say this next year. If I recall correctly, about 13%.
It's crazy.
Which was unexpected, in that specific dollar value. But yeah, they're is an anticipated
No
increase.
changes in coverage, just increase in price.
Not that we've had
Yep.
noted of for our particular plan, although the open enrollment period will be opening up soon, so I will be sending an email to board and staff just to alert them.
And is staff comfortable with the current plan?
I think it's a great plan.
You happy with that?
And right there it went over and then it's gonna increase, so we're gonna really just be, having to get used to the fact that every month is gonna be over because we under budgeted.
And I
Yeah,
think we
we
can
actually based the budget on what we had last year, expected participation, and so that can change, especially as we hire. We estimated the same sort of blend between whether they have family coverage or employee plus one or employee. And so if we get, new employees that warrant that have the family coverage, that also could be over.
So maybe
Or
next year when you
flip
budget, you could just work on it a little bit to.
Yeah, we'll work to be a little
So
more.
I go up another 15%
And-
next year. You can just plan on it for the next few years until. So, but fortunately, we have some surplus funds and things. that
And
can-
kind of for, years past, we haven't really added many employees, so. We knew the mix of the employees we had, whether they have families or single or whatever, so. We have had a little more with dependents.
Overhead's definitely it.
The other one, that was a little bit high was, on page 2 of 26530, and that was the PR website. That one was over by 15,897.
So, our big expenses right now have to do with Healthy Desert, Healthy Youth, and so that's gonna be not proportional to how we're budgeting over the course of the year, because it wasn't evenly spaced. So.
Thank you.
that
Yeah,
was-
and part of that's supported by the sponsorships, is
Okay.
too. So we have the sponsorship revenue come in, but then we treat the expenses in the different categories
Yep.
where they belong, so. We budgeted a little short on that, keeping that in.
Thank you for the explanation on both of those. The only other one is, down to the district check register. If there's nothing before then, do you want me to go there?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Okay, page 4 or 5.
Where, actually?
Just one question on this one, and that is, what is EGPS? And that was on 8/18/25.
EGPS is the new TPA for our, employee retirement plan, so we're in the process. of
Oh, yeah,
transitioning.
okay.
So this is getting them set up.
Get used to
do that.
seeing them.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's-
thank you.
Right.
So the names we'll see when we do the full transfer, EGPS and the census.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
No other questions?
No,
I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports.
I will second your motion.
We'll ask for public comments.
No public comment.
Seeing none, we'll ask for a vote. All in favor of approving the
Aye.
financial reports, say aye.
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 We should actually do probably a roll call. We should be doing a roll call for all of these. But, Director Logston?
Yeah.
Director Delara?
Yes.
And Director Shore,
Yes.
our financials.
Okay.
That's a good point.
All right, moving to other matters, we've taken off 1 and 2. We have some overall lease approvals that we need to take action on. I've reviewed all of them, so. Can briefly go over all of them. I think they're all.
We're starting on page 107. The first one we have is a 5-year lease renewal, and accompanying lease termination. So what we have, Suite 2S201 is currently leased to DRMC, whose lease lasts through February 2026. They have identified, an OBGYN practice that was interested in either subleasing or starting a new lease. And so in this particular case, due to the short duration of the lease, we're recommending terminating the existing DRMC lease and starting the new lease with Emily Reckitt.
Yep.
Hope that's how we say it. I'm saying it
Right.
right. DBA Caring for Women. for a 5-year term at market rates with our standard annual increases. And so that is, the termination is hinged on the execution of the new lease there. Staff recommends approval and include the draft documents.
Thank you. That would be items 3 and 4. It would include the cancellation as well as both the termination as well as the approval. I think this is a good organization. She does good work in the community. You know, we need to support people that are out there doing this type of work. So
Yeah, and since we lost fairly large OBGYN practice there at our medical plaza a few years ago, this would be great to have that
Yep.
practice close by. So.
the lease terms are favorable. Everything's good. I agree with the termination.
I move approval of 3 and 4.
Thank you. I will second that. Any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay. All in favor?
Can I call roll call on this?
Sure, Director Loxton.
Yes.
Director Delara.
Yes.
And Director Shore.
Yes.
2 more leases to review, items 5 and 6. I'll let you just present the new ones.
Sounds good. The next item here, we've got a 5-year lease renewal with DPMG for Suite 1 East 204. That suite was currently under a 2-year lease term related to an agreement that we have given them to operate the mobile medical clinics. They would like to renew the lease for a 5-year term. So it's got our standard 3% or the greater of 3% of CPI annual increases, and lowest square foot tenant improvement allowance, and we recommend approval and keeping them on for another
I'll move
5 years.
approval.
I will second. Take a roll call. Public comments?
No public comments. Director Loxton.
Yes.
Director Delara.
Yes.
And Director Shore.
Yes.
The last lease we have here is for Coachella Valley Volunteers in Medicine. I do want to note that this is contingent upon the lease as of September 30th and start the new lease on October 1st.
Director Shore.
Yes.
Eric, good report. Any final committee member comments? See none. I'll move to convene to